An 80-ton stone giant, walking across an island, by itself. Impossible? The Rapa Nui people said their statues walked. And for centuries, we laughed at them. We were wrong. Picture this, a remote island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. No wheels. No draft animals. No cranes. Yet somehow, the ancient Rapa Nui people transported nearly 900 massive stone statues, some weighing as much as a Boeing 737, across miles of rugged terrain. The tallest stands 33 feet high. The heaviest tips the scales at 82 tons. For centuries, archaeologists scratched their heads. Some theorized wooden sleds. Others suggested rolling logs. A few even whispered, aliens. But here's what kept everyone awake at night. When researchers asked the island's descendants how their ancestors moved these giants, they gave the same answer. Every single time they walked. The statues walked themselves. Now, before you click away thinking this is some supernatural nonsense, stay with me. Because in 2011, a team of engineers and archaeologists decided to take that answer seriously. What they discovered didn't just solve the mystery. It revealed that our ancestors were far more brilliant than we ever gave them credit for. But to understand how they did it, we first need to understand why. Why would anyone carve 900 stone giants on an island just 63 square miles wide? The answer lies in something called mana, a spiritual power the Rapa Nui believed flowed through their ancestors. Each Moai wasn't just a statue. It was a vessel. A container for the souls of their dead chiefs, watching over the living, protecting their descendants. And the bigger the statue, the more powerful the protection. So here's where it gets fascinating. The Rapa Nui didn't just carve these statues randomly. They built a quarry, a single quarry, at a volcano called Rano Raraku. And from this one location, they somehow transported statues up to 11 miles away. Think about that. 82 tons. 11 miles. With ropes and human muscle. Now, for decades, the leading theory was that they laid the statues flat on wooden sleds and dragged them. Makes sense, right? Except there's a massive problem with this theory. And it's the same problem that eventually collapsed their entire civilization. But we'll get to that disaster in a moment. First, look at where researchers kept finding abandoned Moai along the ancient roads. They weren't lying flat. They were face down. Or face up. As if they had fallen over. While standing. In 2011, archaeologists Carl Lippo and Terry Hunt proposed something radical. What if the Rapa Nui were telling the literal truth? What if these statues actually walked? Here's how it works, and this is where ancient engineering genius comes in. Look at the shape of a Moai. Really look at it. The base isn't flat. It's curved. The belly protrudes forward. The center of gravity sits perfectly positioned so that with minimal force, the statue naturally wants to rock from side to side. Now, attach 3 ropes. One on each side. One in the back. A team on the left pulls, the statue tilts and pivots on one edge. Team on the right pulls, it rocks the other way and pivots again. The statue doesn't slide. It wobbles. It literally walks forward with each coordinated pull. The back rope? That's your safety line, preventing your 80-ton ancestor from face-planting into the dirt. But theories are just theories until you test them. So these researchers did something incredible. They built a full-scale concrete replica Moai. 10 feet tall. 5 tons. And they gathered just 18 people with 3 hand ropes. The result? Watch closely. The statue walks. Not dragged. Not rolled. Walks. In under an hour, they moved it 100 meters using nothing but coordinated rope pulls and the statue's own engineered shape. The Rapa Nui weren't just moving stones. They were designing stones to move themselves. This changes everything we thought about ancient capabilities. But here's the dark twist nobody talks about. This walking method? It required something the Rapa Nui eventually ran out of, and when they did, their civilization collapsed spectacularly. Trees. The walking method required trees for the ropes. Not nearly as many as the wooden sled theory, but still, thousands of pounds were needed for the thick cables. And here's the tragedy. When the first Europeans arrived at Easter Island in 1722, they found something strange. An island with massive sophisticated statues, but almost no trees. Paleoanalysis of ancient lake beds revealed the truth. Easter Island was once covered in a lush palm forest. But by the time the Moai construction peaked, the islanders had cut down nearly every tree. Without trees, they couldn't make ropes. Without ropes, the statues stopped walking. Without canoes for fishing, food grew scarce. The civilization that built 900 stone giants collapsed within generations. The Moai weren't just monuments. They were witnesses to humanity's oldest lesson about unsustainable ambition. But wait, there's one more mystery that still haunts researchers. Not all Moai were transported the same distance. Some traveled just a few hundred meters. Others went 11 miles. And the walking method? It works brilliantly on flat ground. But Easter Island isn't flat. It's volcanic terrain with steep hills and rough lava rock. So how did they get the statues up? Recent discoveries suggest something even more ingenious. Archaeologists found ancient stone ramps leading up hillsides, carefully constructed inclines that reduced the angle of ascent. But here's what's really wild. Some Moai were transported to platforms called au, and these platforms weren't at ground level. They were elevated stone pedestals, some reaching 12 feet high. Getting an 80-ton statue onto a 12-foot platform with no cranes? That mystery still isn't fully solved. Some archaeologists believe they used a technique called cribbing, stacking wooden beams in alternating layers beneath the statue while gradually tilting it upward. Others theorize earthen ramps that were later removed. A few suggest a combination, walking the statue to the base, then tilting it onto the platform using counterweights and lever systems. What we do know is this: the Rapa Nui achieved engineering feats that modern engineers initially said were impossible without modern technology. They were wrong. Our ancestors didn't have machines. But they had something equally powerful, an intimate understanding of physics, leverage, and material science, passed down through generations of trial, error, and innovation. Every Moai that stands today is proof that human ingenuity is older than we imagine. So the next time someone says ancient peoples couldn't have built something without supernatural help, remember Easter Island. Remember that when given impossible challenges, human beings don't wait for magic. They innovate. They experiment. They fall. They try again. The Rapa Nui looked at 80-ton stones and asked, "How do we make this work?" And then they did it. Hundreds of times. Over centuries. With nothing but ropes, coordination, and brilliant design. That's not a mystery. That's heritage. That's proof that the so-called lost knowledge was never really lost, it was just waiting for us to listen to the people who remember. What other ancient mysteries do you think have surprisingly simple explanations? Drop your theories in the comments. And if this video made you see our ancestors differently, hit subscribe, because next week, we're investigating another, impossible, ancient achievement that science just cracked. The truth is always more fascinating than the fiction. See you in the next one.